to really, let me ask you, Ash, how are you going with Surf Coast training?
Good. I'm sticking to the plan. So far, so good. Yeah. It's nice to have the app and be able to tick it off like OCD me. Just I have to do it because I have to tick the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're actually in a stage right now, and it'll take probably at least a month, but we are getting a branded Her Trails app. So you go into the app, it's still Kajabi, because why reinvent the wheel, right? But you would go into the app store and you would search up Her Trails, and it would be Her Trails branded app.
Yeah, cool.
And you'll have push notifications and stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes. It's a relatively new thing, so we'll see. But let's get, we got one. I gave myself 7:35 till we start. Because I'm so conscientious of the time and distance. Anyone who runs with me knows that's not the case. Okay, Sandy's coming in. Perfection station. I feel like my internet's just playing up a little bit, but that's fine because I really won't be doing much of the talking. It will be, hey, Amy, hey, Em. And also, I do want to say to everyone else, really get involved with asking questions, because if you're thinking it, it's really great to ask it, because not only for yourself, but other people who are not on this call probably have that question too. So let's make this quite interactive, and particularly things of let's be honest about the challenges of committing to something like 100. How did you fit it in? Was there any breaking points, injuries? What worked, what didn't? I think we should because it's a process, right? Even if it's a 20K program, you kind of experience a similar thing. And then sometimes 100, ironically, the bigger the distance, sometimes the more commitment people have, because it's kind of more scary. So sometimes some of the issues are actually less, but there's different issues. But let's get rolling, because I would love for you to both introduce yourself, and to kind of maybe walk us through where you were physically and on a race perspective before you even thought about signing up for the 100. Were you doing our programs? Were you doing other programs? Were you kind of making it up? Whatever it was, kind of lay the scene of how much you had done to get to this point before you decided to sign up. Starting with Em.
Who's going to go first? I hadn't done any of the Her Trails programs before, but I have run 100 kilometers before. And this was very, very different. The approach was very different. One was that I just sort of found a random 100K program on the internet and just worked it, adapted to it. And it worked enough. So I knew I could run the distance, but this was UTA is huge. It's just a daunting undertaking on its own, because of the reputation that it has and the people that run it and the elevation and the stairs and all that kind of stuff. So it was a pretty scary undertaking. I wasn't actually going to do it. And then I logged onto the call about the training program and all the rest of it. And I think I signed up that night, didn't I, Sam? Signed up to the program before the race had even opened up. So I was like, I don't know. I'm in now. But that's kind of how I approach a lot of my running. It's either a hell yes or a hell no. And if it's a hell yes, then I'm all in. So yeah. And there I was.
Yeah, you were the first person to sign up to the program, and you were asking questions on the call about it. What did you feel like you needed to sign up to the program because it was such a big undertaking, or was there any, because you can actually get a lot of programs these days online, and it's great that you were able to adapt. This is for your Yuyangs race.
Yeah.
So you were obviously able to adapt. What made you think for the UTA that you needed to kind of do it a little different?
Well, it was a complete unknown for me. So it was a race that I had to travel to. I know the Blue Mountains, but I didn't know the terrain. The Yuyangs, I knew the terrain. I'd run the course before, and it was so it wasn't as unfamiliar. What I knew I lacked in the training that I'd done for the previous 100K was I didn't have the strength, and I didn't have the holistic approach, and I didn't have the female specific kind of approach to it. So I needed all of that to piece a lot of things together, and to be able to train with people. I've trained on my own for every race that I've done, and I didn't have that community around me previously. So that's what I think I was most excited by, is having a community around me that were training for the same event.
And boy, did we have that. Let's hit over to Amy, because I think like led into it from a quite a different lens, and even talk about like kind of really broadly, like your physical experiences to that point, Amy, even like things trail running. Like what did you bring to the table before thinking UTA 100 was, possible, and what was even like something that why did it intrigue you?
Yeah, okay. I guess I've always had an active background, but have been running more consistently, probably since COVID. I wanted to get out and I did a marathon at the end of 2021, did the same as them, got a stock standard program off the internet, and had a terrible race. Never wanted to run that distance again, especially not road. Spent the next year looking at sort of adventure races and focusing a little bit more on that, and then came across her trails sort of throughout 2022, and just with the buzz around her trails, learnt about UTA and another running group that I was running with. And it ended up being on my birthday last year, so I felt it was a sign. So I decided to run the 50 and signed up and joined the Her Trails program. So that was my first ultra run, and certainly the longest trail run I had ever done. I did the trail running series, I think, the year before, and just absolutely fell in love with trail running. So went through the Her Trails program, and it was by far the most consistent training I think I had ever done for the 50, and had, up until that point, the best race of my life. Just felt so comfortable, so capable, and for the first time ever finished a race feeling strong, and put it down to just that holistic nature of the program, the strength training, the mobility, and the graduated progression of the program. Felt that, I felt really confident all day. I had 100% planned to do the 50 this year. And then in the UTA call, Joe was talking about how it was the perfect race to step up the distance. So it was during that call that I had the thought of maybe I could do the 100. So then, when the entries came out, signed up to the 100 and joined the Her Trails program. Last year, I, straight after the 50, went into the trail running series again. Certainly didn't have much of a rest, and ended up getting a bit of a knee injury, which really put a question on whether or not I could run the 100 this year. And it wasn't until, I don't know, probably week 19 that I thought I would be all right, because it was really a week by week case. But everything fell into place, and it all worked out okay.
Yeah, I also remember receiving an email from you not long after the UTA info session of like, so am I silly in thinking that I could do? And I remember we kind of like we looked at Amy's time from the year before, which it's not necessarily indicative like of can you do it? Like, a lot of people can do 100. It's just like, it was also gauging like how much time on her feet might she have, which would also reflect like, what was a realistic goal. for the 100K and then going, okay, well, what's the amount of hours it's going to take to kind of get you to that place as well? So, and yeah, like I think particularly you, Amy, you definitely reflect that training processes are not always linear. They don't always go smooth sailing. And that's kind of like problem solving is a massive part of a ultra program. And in conjunction with really listening to your body. And it's complicated, right? Because sometimes your body, like we are hardwired to not like pain, but you are going to feel pain in like an ultra program because you're breaking down the boundaries of what you've kind of fomented in like your internal baseline, and you're kind of pushing the threshold to something new. So there's going to be kind of a bit of discomfort, pain associated with that, but it's like being able to drop the ego and go, is this like, you know how Beck used to always go, is this pain, or is this just like the body's way of saying I'm raising to a new level? And it is real. It's like, can maybe both of you speak to that? Because I think no one likes to feel pain. Like no one likes to feel that. And so like, did either of you experience that along the training journey? And what were some of the thoughts that went through your head? And where, now that you've both finished it strongly, what do you think about that process?
I think I fell apart a few times during the training, and I think Amy saw it once. But, I think it was the longest day that we did. I came into it extremely fatigued. I was crying that whole day. Like I hated that training run, and I'm so grateful that Amy planned that training run and I went to it, because without that, I don't think I would have had the mental resolve that I did in UTA, because I've never hurt so bad during the race, but I've never been so sure that I was going to finish as well. So mental versus physical, it's going to hurt. It is going to hurt. It's just a matter of when is it going to start hurting and how long can it hurt for.
I'm really glad that run was helpful for you, Em. It was a fun day. Yeah, throughout the training program, I had lots of little niggles that probably could have progressed into injuries. And it has definitely been a learning process for me to listen to my body. I've probably been someone that's liked to push through previously and then fallen apart. So, you know, lots of emails and chats with Joe, and then Alex from the running room really helped to work out what I was capable of despite having some niggles. And still really important to still run, but, you know, just modify the training program. And I was lucky enough that I was able to do nearly probably 95% of the program, modify it here and there, but just being aware of what was just a little niggle, but what was progressing more. And funnily enough, all the things that bothered me throughout the training programs, and most long runs especially, even some of the speed sessions, there'd be some element of pain, but it was just a niggle, careful to make sure it wasn't getting worse or changing my gait or, you know, hurting too much in the days that followed. All the things that bothered me for nearly every week of the training program, nothing touched me on race day. I don't know whether it was adrenaline or the tapering process, but that my knee that had hurt nearly the whole time has felt great ever since. So
You just needed to run a full 100 to get there.
Exactly.
It's like, I mean, the mind and body give really interesting signals. Some of them are correct signals that we need to heed, and others are actually ones that are there to kind of test our resolve and almost trick us a little bit. I've certainly had similar experiences leading into races where like my body feels like it's kind of like breaking a little bit. And the thing is, it kind of is breaking. And it's kind of okay. But, you know, you mentioned a good point, Amy, about working with Alex Bell, who, again, I remember when I got that email, I got this thing and I'm like, you need to see Alex. And for those who don't know, Alex actually did our last member session. It's up on the members hub. It's called the Runners Ecosystem. Highly recommend people check it out. But he is a physio who owns the running room. There's clinics, a couple in New South Wales, also in the UK. I think he's coming here to Melbourne too, but I'm not going to say too much. But a big thing for us with Her Trails is because we are essentially a decentralized like coaching platform, we like to offer resources and build them into our program that are also decentralized. And what I've learned from Alex, and he's like the best, in my opinion, he's the best in the business. And I've been to a lot of physios. A lot of people think that when they go to a physio, it makes them feel better to be touched. But actually, like our myotherapist is really who should be touching us, or our, like, you know, the masseuse that we go to. The biggest role that physios play is diagnostic and rehab. And a huge portion of that can be done through conversation, tests and drills over video. And what do you think that process was like, Amy, with with Alex?
It was amazing, to be honest. And I've been to lots of physios over the years too, and haven't always found them beneficial. But I felt like he would just look at a movement and work out exactly what the problem was, and be able to give an exercise, watch it over Zoom, and modify it so you felt it exactly where you needed to. And I was getting some midfoot pain. He gave me this exercise, and I was just like, what is this voodoo that you do? Because it went away straight away. And he did that for so many little niggles. It really made a huge difference. Just changing some of the strengthening that I was doing, and just the general advice about modifying some of the speed sessions and that sort of thing. I really felt that, without his expertise, I don't think I would have gotten to the race in the end.
Yeah. And, you know, that's the team thing. Like, did it make you feel like you're in a team sport?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also saw my therapist, and I was seeing Amanda. So yeah, it felt like quite the athlete.
But it is, I mean, and like, did you feel a similar thing too? Did it feel like a team sport, Em, or did you feel like a solo ranger? Because everyone can experience it different.
It was so good because there were sessions that you would do on your own, but there were sessions that you do as a team with other people who were doing different distances. The group calls are the program calls where you can ask your questions that you need to ask, and having the resources like Amanda and you know, to be able to really nail the bits that you don't feel like you've nailed. You actually do feel like a bit of a proper athlete because you've got all of those resources available to you that you would have if you were, you know, elite.
But we are elite, right?
What?
I mean,
Sure.
but it's like ultra running and trail running is one of the only sports where the shittest person at the sport can be standing on the same start line as the best person in the you know, in that sport as well, and in that discipline. And I think like everyone has the opportunity to invest in that goal fully. And like where we all go is like unique to us, and it actually doesn't matter in contrast to anyone else. But I think, you know, there is an element of obviously expense in these processes of 100Ks, from the registration of the race, the travel, if you've got to travel to it. You know, I do think you have to kind of, and this is an important thing for people to factor, like if you really want to do these ones properly, you've got to factor in at least, you know, every couple of weeks getting like a treatment, particularly if you're not particularly good at doing the pre-rehab and you don't do the foam rolling. I mean, you should be doing that, and that helps, but I would still be getting a massage, like, you know, at least once a month. And then most people in a 100K program will probably see a physio at least once, I would imagine. And, you know, like most people don't always have to go and see a dietitian one-on-one because there's a lot they might get from here, but then some people want to elevate it as well. So it's like you have all these options, but I think these are big goals that don't just serve you on the race day, but they serve you for the 20 weeks leading into it, that are fundamentally changing you as a person. You know, like it is completely changing your wiring of your capabilities, both physically, psychologically, and also the potential of what you can do in the future on and off the trails. And that's why, like, I really rate deep investment. And the cool thing is, like, you guys were the two that were doing the UTA 100. Well, there's actually a couple of others, but you were so all in. And it's so interesting to hear that story. So, do you want to talk about, like, for those who didn't do the program, like, talk about the first 4 weeks of like the prime to build, because we regularly get people thinking that we're not getting you to do enough. And can you please share your experiences of maybe what you were feeling in the first 4 weeks, whether it was frustrating, what it looked like, and then did you feel like you weren't doing enough? And then tell me how it played out as you kind of built up to more mileage and distance and intensity?
It was very much trusting the process. And yeah, I think coming into it was good. Okay, it was good because it was right at the start of the year, right? So, and I'd run a 50 in the end of October the year before, and it completely destroyed, well, not destroyed me, but I'd pushed pretty hard in that race, and it wrecked me. So I kept running through that the next few months, but taking it pretty easy. But the actual prime to build phase it doesn't feel like run heavy, it feels strength heavy or mobility heavy. So it feels like you're actually really setting that groundwork. And I think that's what set that apart from any other, well, I've only done the other program for the 100 that I did the year before, but that's what set it apart for me. I felt like I had a good foundation to actually build on with distance. Yeah.
And very similar for me, I had the thought that I was going to trust the process through the whole program. Having come off a very successful 50 the year before, I knew that the program worked. I actually took all of December off running to try and settle my knee, which meant that 4 weeks was really important as a gradual build up. Sometimes it did feel like I could run more, but I very much stuck to it, knowing what was coming later. And there was going to be some big weeks later that I would appreciate these 4 weeks come then.
Yeah, Ash, you might feel that, right now, Ash, just to put her in the hot seat, is doing Surf Coast 100 training program. And, I would say Ash is coming from a relatively strong base. And so it would definitely feel like deload. And like, in that time frame, we do a lot more, our running is more base. And for those who are doing our program, like base is kind of like 40% of your maximum capacity. And so it can feel like you're running really slow, and we don't have intervals really in that time frame. And if you don't trust the process and kind of are aware of what's to come, there is an intensity of some people of like, but I'm going to lose the fitness that I had before. And then if I'm building to 100, like losing this fitness can't be a good thing. I'm just going to add 15 minutes, or I'm going to add 20 minutes, or I'm going to start putting a speed work in somewhere, or I'm going to go to more 60% of my capacity because I just feel good today. And what I say is like the first thing you want to achieve is 100% achievement of every single like session, really embedding the structure and consistency of the runs at a really low intensity, the strength, the mobility, watching all the content, because there's so many nuggets in there, and it's so easy to just go like, oh, I'll watch that later. But once you're 2 weeks behind, it's really hard to go backwards. So it's like, it's more, do it incrementally so it's easier. Do the journaling work, because I think that does really help. So I think it really does pay off to kind of just like deload, and you don't lose much by deloading. For those, someone like yourself, Ash, the amount of fitness that you drop is like in the 1 to 3%. And you need that because you're then going to go high. And so your body really thanks you for it. You don't want to be on the edge. Like, you don't want to be at race fitness. You don't want to be at your peak, because then that's when you break too quickly. So it's like deloading and almost kind of feeling like you're deconditioning, which you're totally not, is important. And again, everyone on the call, feel free to jump in on questions. Don't just leave it to me to ask them. But do we want to hear now a bit about, like, we'll go back to training later, but let's maybe hear about like the race experience itself. You've obviously both from Victoria, so you had to kind of fly in or drive up. And you both actually did a different thing, but talk about like what that experience is like. Did you bring family? Did you go solo? What was the support crew plan? How much planning did you do? Was there elements that you winged it? Did that work? And yeah, let me go through the race.
I think this is going to be so good because we have two very different stories to tell, I think. There was a bit of winging it for me. I kind of rallied the troops around me that I was staying with to be able to support me in the end. I think the hiccup that we probably Amy and had as well as me is that we had no crew until over halfway So it was actually about drop bags and being able to sustain ourselves for 56K or whatever it was. I think that was probably the trickiest part. My race was probably very different. It was very different. We're different runners. I knew I was going to be on my feet longer than Amy. So there was a lot. I knew there was going to be a lot of night running for me. Maybe not as much as I ended up having, but there was a lot of night running for me. And I did have a hiccup coming into the first aid station, where I rolled my ankle just before. So it was a matter of, okay, the next checkpoint is like 7K or something. It's pretty cruisy. Let's see if I can move through it to that point. And I could. So I moved through that, held my pace, kept it quite slow, and then was navigating on that part of, I was in contact with Tilla, who was like ground support, and she was able to meet me with everything that I needed at the 56K mark or whatever it was when we came into the aquatic centre. That's, yeah, into Katoomba. And I actually felt really mentally good. I felt pretty mentally good most of the race. So it was definitely very hard. And there was moments that were really tricky. And do you know, okay, so the thing I love most about 100K races or any ultra really is the places that you go in your head and what you come back from and what you're actually capable of. My body was capable of doing it, no worries. But it was where my head was going to go and how I was going to move through the bits that got really hard. I never thought I wasn't going to finish. I just had hoped I would finish a bit quicker. So I'm going on like a bit of recap now. It was the person that came out at the finish line that is a very different person that went in at the start line. It sounds really, I feel like it's really cliche, but I'm not who I was when I went into this race. Like there's a thing that happened between 85K and 100K that I can't even explain. Like I'm just a different person for the points that it pushed me and the places that it took me mentally. And the nighttime running was hard, but I'm good at nighttime running. I can get through it. I'm pretty resilient in nighttime running. And there was always someone to kind of talk to and chat with, and never underestimate the power of dry socks and fresh shoes, and maybe a fresh top. Like it changes everything. It's like a hot shower. It kind of changes the whole mood to everything. But and a good cup of soup. But yeah, I was going somewhere with that. But coming up the stairs at sunrise and seeing girls at the top was just like, that was the race for me. Like it was that's what changed everything for me. The people, the community, I wasn't alone then. And coming through was just phenomenal. And then the finish line was pretty powerful, and having people there at the end. I've never had people like that at a finish line. I've always finished a race, there might have been one or two people, and it was very underrated. And then I went back to my life. This is the first time I've been able to go through a race, hit the finish line and fall into somebody's arms and just sob. Like it was just magic, just absolute magic. Like, do it. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was getting so many updates. I had to leave my dad, but felt like I was living it because I was getting like all the updates, and like, Amy, your husband didn't realize that I had left. And so he was like, I was getting these like, Amy's here. and I didn't want to say like, I didn't want him to stop sending it. So I just like didn't say anything. But you were like, you had a lot of people rallying in your corner. And even though I was gutted to not be there, I also felt like so proud, like how these things are never just one person. It's like everyone wants to be there for everybody. And we even see it kind of in like the group runs, the community group runs, and those people are amazing, but they don't even have their full skin in the game with like the membership or the programs. And so it's like the deeper you go in, the more like embedded everyone is for each other. It's like that, yeah, that skin in the game counts for so much. It's like the skin in the game also sustains the community too. And so like it was really special. It's like it's a big deal. Like doing an ultra of any distance is huge. Doing like 100 and then doing 100 in the freaking mountains is like you go to crazy places because like the landscape is just all, particularly at nighttime, looks so different, and you basically all your proprioception changes and all you can see is in front of you, and sometimes you think you're moving really quickly but you're not. And it's like quite like,
I don't think I ever felt like I was moving quickly.
oh Amy, sometimes did you think you were moving quickly and then you look at your watch and you're like, this is not that quick?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's just like what it is like when in the darkness. It's a very interesting feeling, and like, you know, no one's moving quick after 80K. What about your support teams? Like, Em, you shared a bit about that. You had a different experience, Amy, because you brought your husband. You also had your 2 kids with you. Thank you, parents, who looked after them. What was it like having them, and then also having the Her Trails girls for you, really, from when you got to the top of the stairs as well? Yeah, what was that experience like?
It was phenomenal, actually. So having my hubby Lockie and the 2 kids, we drove up, took the caravan. It was probably really grounding for those couple of days beforehand. They were a bit of a distraction and probably kept me more settled than had I been on my own. And my parents were great too. They just took the kids off Lockie's hands so he could focus on crewing me. But it really, I still sort of had to step away from them at times to prepare, especially Friday afternoon. They gave me a lot of space so I could just physically prepare all the drop bags and all my nutrition bags, as well as mentally prepare. But I tell you what, running across that finish line with my girls' hands, holding my girls' hands, will be something I will treasure forever. That was worth all the hard slog of the training. That's 15 and a bit hours of the run. That was, yeah, absolutely memorable. And they got a lot out of it too. They still talk about it, and which is great. I found the first 50 odd Ks, we were away from the town. We were running through this valley. There was very few spectators. A lot harder once we got to town and started seeing people, seeing the support of even people you don't know, and then bumping into people like Tommy and Alex and Amanda, the dietitian, before we got to Fairmont, and some of the other local ladies that I run with at the aquatic centre. It was just so uplifting. And every text message that I got or WhatsApp message on my watch, each one just gave you that little boost of energy. And my watch was seriously going off every minute with messages. And they were just so, uplifting. And then I tell you what, for seeing Tommy on the halfway up giant steps, whereas probably I was starting to really struggle, she got me to the top, and then running it through Echo Point with all the Her Trails girls screaming and ringing cowbells. I was running on air after that. That was incredible. You feel like an absolute superstar. And then being able to hug them at the end, some of them were in tears. They were just so happy. It was really, really phenomenal. And I think, obviously, a lot of hard work, a lot of preparation goes into it, but it really is that extra little bit that you need. Or you cannot do that sort of race solo. I don't think that support makes such a difference. And whether it's the Her Trails or family or whatever, it really is important.
I mean, it is crazy because some people do it by themselves. And like, But I think it's like and you don't know what you don't know as well. And it's like both of you have, I mean, well, actually, yeah, Em, you did 100Ks kind of by yourself too. So you kind of know it, but it feels different when like you're not alone. And I think ultras can already take you to so much time by yourself because you can't do all your runs with other people. So you already are a bit in your own head. And, you know, I think a few of you heard me talk about the fact that we live in this, like, we're around people, but we are like in this like epidemic of loneliness right now. And we often don't feel like we belong. And we do these things, obviously, not because we just want to suffer and feel pain and hate life, but we want to kind of get closer connected to ourselves. And I think what a lot of people find out of it is like, when you get that closer connection to yourself, it's about how do I connect with others in a more authentic, meaningful way? How do I take it off superficial and like find, here I am deeply caring about myself, but I actually now want to care deeper for those that are important in my life? How do I make those decisions? How am I more intentional with how I put my energy? Because we can see from the process of 100K what happens if I am intentional with this one facet of my life, like what comes out of it. What if I was more intentional across the board of many things in my life?
Oof, yeah. Like there's so many parallels between trail running, ultra running, and life and focus and connection and all of that. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Does anyone like, I could ask a zillion questions, but like, come on, let's open it up to the table, meaning like those sitting here. Ash, Shauna, Leanne, who basically was like Amy's training sidekick the whole way, who really was incredibly, incredibly impressive. Obviously, race performance, but also like commitment through the program. I actually did a little bit of a look-see the last couple of days of like, because you're all members, like how many times people have accessed like the Kajabi. And Leanne, you are up there, my friend. You definitely logged in many, many times and went into stuff. So it's like, you know, you just see it like when someone does so much and then you see them have such a great performance, you're like, oh, like process really counts.
Can I just shout out to Leanne too, because she was also, after she finished her 50K, somehow trekked out to the about 70K mark in the middle of the bush and was there screaming. I don't know how long she had to wait, but screaming and holding a sign as I ran past, and then met me again at Echo Point at about 9 o'clock at night. And it really, really made a huge difference and gave me that lift. So thank you, Leanne.
Sam asked a question, and you can totally type it, everyone. Her question was, were both of you part of the weekend running groups leading in person leading in, and or had you met the Her Trails people before the big event?
Yeah, I think Amy's been around Her Trails a bit longer than I have, but I was introduced to Her Trails maybe a little over 12 months ago, whenever that first coffee run was.
And yeah, I think I started with Her Trails mid 2022, and then last year really consistently running in week in, week out with the group, and tried to make it a real priority to get there every second Sunday.
Yeah, we have people across the board who, I mean, it's so great now because we have so many different run groups around the country, and I think it's becoming easier and easier for people to do a program and to be able to get access to those fortnightly run groups. Like literally, I think we have them in 14, 15 locations, and not everyone does them every time. But it really does make it easier, like to know that like every fortnight, you know, you're going to get a solid run in, but also your cup's going to be filled by other people who are also prioritizing it. It does help you level up because no one here is human. Everyone here has like competing commitments with their time. And it's great to share strategies, but also to have that realistic dose of like, yeah, this can be really hard at times, and the balance of the two. And then what you find is like you then have other people to run with it on the off week, and then sometimes even the midweek runs as well. But mostly, you know, people are, you know, trying to find people for those long runs because those long runs can be kind of hard by yourself. Next question from Ash. Did you go into the race with an idea of how you would pace yourself throughout the race? If you felt great during the race, did you have to hold yourself back? Were you worried about going too hard and falling in a heap? Such a good question. Did you hear that, Amy, or we like?
Yep. Do you want me to start this time?
You go.
Yeah, I've had a lot of races where I've gone out too hard too early and crashed later. So I had a pretty meticulous plan, and I looked at the elevation of each segment, compared it to similar Strava runs to sort of work out what pace I could run, and then said to myself, and sort of aimed through this throughout the run, that I wouldn't, no matter what, go faster than 6-minute Ks. All my base runs I usually run at about 5 minutes 50, so it's pretty similar, but regardless of how easy the terrain was, I would make sure I wouldn't go any faster than that. And there were many, many Ks where I went a whole lot slower, but for the most part, I was able to stick to that, which took a lot of discipline, because, you know, especially early on, felt pretty good, kept thinking, oh, this is all right, but had to pull myself back, knowing that there was a long, long way to go. And at one point, I was walking up a hill and I thought, oh, I probably could run this. I probably should be running more, and said to myself, I don't think you're going to get to the end and we should run more. And that's absolutely what happened. I was pretty happy with how I paced it in the end, because I got there without too much. The pain wasn't too deep by the end, so I was happy.
Yeah, I don't think it's really possible to run too much in that anyway. The first half was actually, I felt pretty consistent, pretty good. But in the back of my mind, I knew that the back half was going to be far more brutal and far more UTA specific. Nothing compares you for the amount of stairs there are. Nothing, not even those 1,000-step repeats. Like they just never stop. And you think they're done. You get to the top of getting up to Echo Point. You're like, oh, okay, it's all over now. No, it's not. I think my plan went out the window at about 16K because I rolled an ankle. So then it was just about trying to hold what I could, feeling like I could continue the distance. And I was able to continue the distance. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's what I came to do, and that's what I did. So, yeah, but definitely had to hold myself back at the start because it was very exciting getting out of that starting line, and it was a pretty easy first, you know, 20 odd K. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's
comparatively.
well, yeah. I mean, and isn't the first 20 easy when you've trained for 6 hours out? Of course, the first 20 are going to be easy because you've just done so much more training than 20. Like back in the day, like when you were kind of just training for half marathons, like you would never have said that of 20K. It's just that, again, like you have a different kind of appetite for enduring, suffering. About that, I just want to kind of add a little bit, Ash, because obviously you're training for Surf Coast, really different kind of course, very runnable, particularly the first one. I mean, you'll start by heading out on the beach and kind of going on the rocks. And I say, like, make the most of what you're good at, but also like keep reminding yourself it's in the context of 100K, and use that kind of technical part of the terrain to kind of just like really get your breathing so easy, like really into, I can just go back to UTK 50. I chose to not start with anyone because I didn't want that. I knew because I didn't want to be caught up in anyone else's pace. And I kind of had done so much of my training with people. I wanted to see, like, okay, like now what do I have on my own on race day? And I remember I literally bumped into a zillion people that I didn't really know, but they kind of knew me. So there was lots of chatting, but there was one girl that was we were in like a Congo line. And sometimes in these races, you get into a single file and then all of a sudden very quickly you're doing the pace of everyone else because you want to stick behind someone and you don't want to slow up the person behind you. And at one point I was like, nah, this is not right for me. I want to walk the corner of the switchback and then kind of run. And even though it was so runnable and I knew a big hill was coming, but I was like, no, like it's too much to run consistently for the first 25K. And so I actually dropped out of the Congo line, let everyone go, which is like a massive dropping the ego moment. And I just let them go. And then I walked every bend and then kind of like ran and walked every bend. By 40K, I passed every single one of those people. PS, they were all guys, one girl. And then the one girl, like we kind of like had a bit of a chat and she was really, really lovely. And I said to her, you're breathing really heavy. Like you want to feel so easy. She's like, oh, I don't feel easy at all right now. And I'm like, we want to feel easy. Like, let's not get caught up in other people's kind of raz. And she slowed down and came up to me, and she didn't even finish that far behind me. And then she came up to me at the finishing line and she's like, oh my God, that is exactly what I needed to hear. Like, and experience helps you get that. And hopefully like being consistently reminded about that can also help you bridge that gap quicker. You know, standing on the shoulders of giants can cut time dramatically if you choose to listen to the experience of the wise and old. And yeah, I think like when we start to look at the race strategy for Surf Coast Century and we really break down the profile and we identify where your strengths are, and like we obviously still want to leverage those strengths, but then we need to have pulsing breaks. It's like Joe calls it as the slingshot, which links beautifully to Sandy's question, because we slingshot for strategy of our pace and energy output. We also need a slingshot when we have issues with nausea, cramping, or other issues. And so for Amy and Em, did you experience any of those during the race? If so, where did your mind go? And then what did you do about it?
Who wants to go? I didn't have any nausea. I didn't have any cramping. It's probably the first race that I've done. I think some of that was because I was moving a bit slower than I anticipated as well. But I also had, so Alex and Tommy, whether they meant to or not, at the last checkpoint gave me a bit more electrolytes than I thought I needed. And I think that's why I didn't cramp in the last bit, because I definitely needed the extra electrolytes that I had. But I was eating like all the time. I felt like I always had something. I was consistently just fueling myself, not having maybe as much as I thought I was going to need, but I was consistently fueling with food and gels and lollies and whatnot that I had used the whole way through training. So there was nothing brand new. And for the first time ever, I didn't actually eat aid station stuff. I actually had my own bits and pieces that I was going to eat at checkpoints that I had drop bags instead of relying on aid stations.
Yeah, I was really fortunate. I didn't have any of those issues either. My nutrition plan that I had, like Emily, practice on all the long runs throughout the training program, and I'd spoken to Amanda, the dietitian, about, just worked really well. I was able to consistently have a gel every hour and then something else on the half hour between for almost the entire time. As well as some Coke in the last 20Ks, which was an absolute lifesaver. Every time, coming up out of Kadumba, I felt like it was starting to get hard. I'd just have a sip of Coke and I'd be fine for the next 5 minutes or so. It was, just really, really helpful. My biggest issue was probably I was getting blisters on my toes. Coming down off Iron Pot Ridge was a really steep descent. And it just smashed my toes into the front of my shoes. But took off. I was wearing 2 pairs of socks at the time, and then took a pair of socks off as my feet swelled, put on some numbing cream, and was able to put up with it for the rest of the run. But that was really probably the biggest problem I had throughout the whole run.
Yeah, I got no chafing and I got no blisters. And I'm like, oh, this is magic. Get the Injinji socks.
How much of it is, though, finding out where you chafe during a 8-hour run and knowing that you need to put cream there before you start?
Oh, yeah, I was lathered. I was so lathered.
and re-lathered at checkpoints.
Yep.
Yeah. Did your reach for your cruise from the 50K plus point, was there a lot they did for you? Was it all a part of the plan? Or who kind of had like a bit of a hybrid self-supported approach, if you did?
I think I had a little bit of a hybrid self-supported approach because I wasn't sure what my support was going to look like until 24 hours before. But knowing that, I also had like a little document with dot points of information that I could give to people if they needed it. So I knew, having done long distances before, I sort of knew what I might need at certain points or what I needed to be reminded of because I wouldn't be thinking straight. And that came to play. So yeah, things like making sure I had decent fueling at the end, because when you're getting close to the end, I don't know if Amy's like this as well, or even you, Sam, like you're getting closer to the end and you're like, oh, it's not far to go, so I'm not going to worry about fueling now because I just want to get to the finish line. And so you're just kind of pushing the last 10K or whatever, and you're pushing to, you're not focusing on the fueling at that point, but it's still just as important. So having someone to remind me and not letting me leave the aid station until I'd finished my hot, my hot soup and my had my Coke, to actually keep moving. I think that's what helped in the end. So
I was very, very prepared. I'm a planner and love a list. And I had multiple spreadsheets with different times and expected, ETAs and that sort of thing. And expecting that I would potentially come delirious at points and not know what I want. Had all these checkpoints so that Lockie would know what to give me. Fortunately, I was mentally fine throughout the whole race, and I could remember everything I'd written down because I'd planned it for so long. But it was just lots of things of where I needed to put chafing cream, take my watch off to charge, unpack all the unused gels that I didn't use and put some more in. I think having that plan just took a lot of stress out, both for myself and for Lockie. He had it right in front. He knew exactly what he needed. And then I had that confidence knowing that he had that, even though I remembered most of it on the day anyway.
Yeah, I was much the same actually, Amy, because I had the dot points and I knew what my information was, and they had all of the information that I needed. But I think having written it and gone through it so many times, you sort of know what you need. But mentally, I sort of knew what I needed at each point myself as well. So
it's such a good reminder, like you say, you're getting towards the end, think you might not need something, but knowing that you've spent so many weeks thinking about it, that it's written down, that just, no, actually you do need to take that electrolyte with you, or, that nutrition.
Just, yeah, I echo actually what Lauren said. She goes, I know how much I enjoyed watching you both move over the course of the day without even knowing you personally. Your experiences have both provided much inspiration and encouragement to us all. Congratulations. And that is, I 100% agree. Something very freaking compelling and inspiring about people really commit. Yeah, I was even like heavily emotional watching people going up in the race on the Thursday, and it's just like people are really on the edge of their faculties. It's like what a privilege to kind of see that, and like you want to do everything you can to kind of like rally them. Yeah, it's awesome. Is there any other questions? We've got a bunch of people who were actually there, like obviously Lyndall, you were there, you and your bloody ankle. She's like, no, my ankle, don't talk to me about it.
Yeah, I loved Em's story. I'm like, oh, that's my spirit person, someone who rolls their ankle in there and keeps going. So
yeah, but knowing when I'd rolled the ankle that it wasn't race ending, it was a matter of like, yeah, because there was a split second when that happened, I thought, crap, I'm 15K in. If this is it, I'm really going to be angry. And it was just get to the aid station, move through. No, I can still move. It's okay.
Yeah. I should say, because like UTA is such a beast with like, you've got to plan it so far in advance. because it's just so it either sells out or requires you to be so far ahead. And I think that actually helps people, like, because they've committed well in advance, and it actually helps financially a bit as well, because you incrementally made like payments a long time. But I actually have booked like 4 houses for next year already. And I did 2 of them on the weekend of it happening, and then the next 2 afterwards. And like, can I say, like, so many houses, like majority are gone already. Like some will kind of come up and go and all that, but just it was so great having so many people in the same home. And I just know how, like, because Lyndall, you're in one, you're in one. Yeah, for those who kind of like live that experience of the shared house thing, like Lyndall, maybe if you can give like your experiences, because you even live kind of close to it, but you still were like, peace out, kids. I'm going to go hang out.
I'm off. I'm about an hour and a half away, so I knew it would be tough to get there in time on the day of. But I loved it because we had a bunch doing the 22 on the Friday, and so you got to kind of go and cheer them on, feel their emotions, see them afterwards, hear about their experience, and then have it reciprocated the next day, which was amazing. And it was just all in, like it was really easy. The people who did the 22 cooked dinner for everyone for the 50, so we came home to like a hot meal that could be heated up whenever. So that was fantastic. It was just a really great vibe of a weekend. It was really good.
Yeah, it's like the slumber party of, like, you know, the middle-aged women.
Yeah, it was. Everyone was in bed by like 8:30 because either they were sore or getting up the next day. But, you know, there was space for people just to be on their own. There was always, the houses were huge, so there was so much space for people to hang out and chat. And we ended up having my car just chock-a-block on the way home because they did track work, which was a stupid decision for the trains. So I had like a heaving car with everyone's luggage for a road trip. We just didn't want it to end, really.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. And I should say, for those listening, like, most people don't actually know each other in the houses. Like, people all kind of said that they wanted to stay in accommodation, and for those, and then I kind of just compiled people and really did have a mixture of those who were doing the 22 and a 50 and the 100, because I think it's nice for there to be a bit of a blend for exactly what you shared. And like, yeah, we like to get nice homes, but then we like share accommodation as well. So it is a lot of fun. We're trying to do it at more of the events now. Like, we'll do it at Buffalo. We've got a house at Tarawera. There's like, I think most of the rooms have been already booked up for Tarawera, but we can do it we can get another one. We've got I think there's a couple maybe floating at Surf Coast, GPT. Oh yeah, Kirsty's here. Can she help me with Harry? GPT's got a place too. So like, yeah, we're trying to do it a lot, and obviously like it's always members first. For like, members will always find out about like accommodation, like any discounted kind of stuff will always get like first access and like a space to apply and like for a spot before we kind of go to like program participants, and then we go broader community. Yeah, kind of what we do. But any other questions? Because I'll let these incredibly fine women who've shared so generously get to wrap up. But I think it goes without also saying, if anyone has questions later, like when we put up this on the member page, the video call, people can ask other questions as well. And like, I'm sure Em and Amy will be really happy to share other insights. And I'm probably just going to like volunteer them if like anyone really wants to have like a bit of a one-on-one question and ask it, because it's a big freaking deal to sign up for really 50 or 100 for any race. And we do have like a really great community of people who have done it and can always kind of like ask you questions, answer questions as well.
Yep. Like, someone's just got to look at me and I'll tell them all about it.
Yeah, she's like, just breathe on me and I'll tell you my
I wore my UTA jumper to my daughter's regional cross country, and I picked her up from school in it. She said, "You want everyone to know who the real runner is, don't you, Mum?" And I'm like, "Yep." And I wore it proud everywhere. It's hilarious.
Oh, that reminds me, because like obviously on the 8th, I'll start posting out like all like the Beyond the Run capsule stuff. And like there's a lot of people here who have gotten outfits, but I just see like this bad mum scene or something like that, like us rolling in our like matching onesies and just like, kind of coming off the trails or yeah, there is I think I said in the email for anyone, but like there's a couple of items that are still in the shop. Anything that was like really well liked in certain sizes, I just got a couple of extra items. So they will be available also on the 8th. So if there's stuff that you didn't get that you were keen on, jump on hertrails.com, go to the shop, and it's just the Beyond the Run capsule campaign. Like the beanies and like the stuff is looking really awesome. So I do know that once people start wearing it, people are going to ask, and we just have that limited amount. But yeah, let's bad mums it out.
I have to say, Sam, those shirts were so good out on the UTA, not only to spot other people that I hadn't met from across, different states, but conversations out on the trails. I had this one girl say, "Oh, how do you find her trails? I was going to sign up to the program, but it was a bit expensive." And I held my breath because she was there cramping, holding on to her quads like every 100 meters she was bent over double. And I'm thinking, I bet you would have paid that money to not be cramping right now. But so many comments. It was really, really good.
It is interesting, like, and it's so fair. Like, it's very hard to explain the program if you've never done it before. And even for us, because a lot of people are like, oh, the price is what the price is. I should just get some one-on-one coaching. And there are definitely some awesome one-on-one coaches. And if you are really into training peaks, like one-on-one coaching is great, but there are so many elements that majority of one-on-one coaches don't do, from the strength to mobility, the access to the dietitian, weekly coaching calls, so much accountability. And then like the other community of people who are training as well. Like I know the WhatsApp, I don't know, maybe a couple of you muted the notifications in the WhatsApp group, but like I don't, I get still all the notifications. I just go into it when I want to. And it's so nice to feel like you're not alone. And then like everyone has a bit of feedback. And if you're doing a speed session, everyone's kind of doing it. So there is so much more into it that you don't have to find. And I always think like, I want to create a platform and a program for like the busy woman who wants to learn and grow. And why have to individually decode something that someone else has already done? Like we don't have the time to do every single element. So, I mean, I personally love when people pull all these things together for me. I'm seeing Ash's. I have hundreds of questions. I will get to a Sunday run soon to pick your brains, Amy and Em. And I should also say, Ash, we're going to do a session down the Surf Coast soon. So for anyone here who's from Victoria, or even if you're from afar and want to come, we're going to go to the Surf Coast, whether you're training for Surf Coast Century or not, and we'll do a training run there, and we'll break apart some of the sections of that course as well. Because I'm also doing like, the 100 with Joe. So we're doing 50-50. So, that's maybe a little selfish, but I would have done it anyway for you guys. We get to go on a road trip. We'll all carpool and head down together. And then Ash can be the lead. All right.
Which leg are you doing? 1 or 2?
Oh, I don't know. What do you reckon I should do?
I don't know, because I've done the 50 the last 2 years and it's been leg 3 and 4, but now this year it's completely different. So I've never done the 1-2 leg.
And you can't go like, I'm going to do 1 and 3. You got it.
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
If it was, I do 2 and 4 and Joe would do 1 and 3. But I don't think you get that choice, but I might check. Because
1's the one I'm worried about, because you get wet and stuff, and then I'm worried you'll blister. And
I'm doing 1 and I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun.
You can change shoes though at the halfway through.
Yeah. I crewed Tiller last year for the 100. It's so much fun. I loved crewing it.
I'm going as like designated crew this year to like the Surf Coast, because I don't want to run it, but I want to crew it.
It's so much fun. Kirsty and I did it for Tiller last year, because the week before we did Puffing Billy, and then Tiller, I was like, who's your crew? She's like, I don't have a crew. And I kind of scouted her husband, and I'm like, I'll crew. He ended up coming like by the 3rd or 4th leg, and I now like tease him for it. I'm like, you only came because I said I was coming. Anyway, we had such a blast, and it's such a fun race for both run and crew. And you can see people in a lot of places, which makes it really fun as well. And there's such a diversity on that trail. The climbs are not as big as like a UTA, but it's like, because you are running faster, you feel what the climb is more. Like it's all like relative. It's like you kind of like hit your fatigue level because your running legs have pushed a bit more. And so then when you have to climb, you're like, oh crap, like I really have to change my gears right now. So it's constant gear shift. And the quicker you can do that, like, you might be Ash running those flats, at like a 7 out of 10. And then all of a sudden you're going to hit just a small incline. And I would recommend you quickly drop that to a 5 so you can then go back to the 7 when the terrain allows. So it's just like constant, like being significantly below threshold to reduce things like overwhelming fatigue, but also like muscular breakdown and like cramping. So that's kind of, it's every race requires a different like mindset and game. And that's like the fun part. It's like looking at that course profile and really kind of going, knowledge is power. How do I become a student of what this course is? And there's advantage and disadvantages of living near the course as well. So sometimes, it's great to not know what you don't know, because you just take it as it is. And sometimes when you know it, you're like, I know what's coming up. So we'll get to have a really good play. But leg 1 is fun. And it's cool starting in the dark with all those people. It's like the only time when so many people are all together. And you get to see the people at the start line twice. Yeah. All right, everyone, we'll jump off, but if there's no more questions, but thanks for jumping on. We obviously missed a session last time with Dr. Kirsty Holland, just because I was not able to make it, but she's our next cab off the rank. And Kirsty's just walked away because she's actually done some one-on-one sessions with Kirsty. She's like the best person when it comes to hormonal health, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. She's like the freaking guru, and she's incredibly expensive one-on-one. So we're going to like take her. She's one. But she's just like and she's got so much love and warmth, and she doesn't hold back. So for that session, I will ask in advance if anyone has questions. It's going to be a live stream again. I'm going to be interviewing her in a studio, but questions will be able to come through in real time. But also I'll try and collate as many questions in the lead up to it also. And she really, really knows her shit. So as soon as we lock in that session, I will let you know. And I know that like so many people are going to sign up to her afterwards because she's wild. But I think there's a lot we can get without people having to sign up one-on-one. Yeah. Any questions, guys? Perfect.
No, just a huge well done to Emily and Amy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're legends.
It's worth doing.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. That's it. Now you're going to have to be the crew next year.
Oh, I've
Maybe.
already decided I'm going to go back and crew someone, because I'm not running that. Not yet. I'm running that 100 again, but not next year. Not after GPT.
Have you thought about doing it next year?
Me?
Yeah.
I think I will. I would have done it the next weekend if I could. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful course. Like UTA is, and actually, ironically, although it's hilly, is a really good first 100K race, because it's incredibly crewable. The aid stations are not too far away, and like the fact that the terrain changes so much actually allows your muscles to get a break in between of the shifting of gears. So there's like actually a lot of merits to sometimes a kind of somewhat harder course. Yeah. Perfect, everyone. I will put this up in her space. And if you have any questions about anything else, also feel free, just even more broadly membership stuff, please send us an email at info@hertrials.com. We've got some cool things in the works system-wise, as well as more run camps, including one hopefully next year. We're going to do Derby just after my weekend, where the mountain bike trails will become our trail running trails. But there's permits and all that kind of stuff. But we'll be adding Tassie to a run camp location as well. And for anyone who is keen on Grampians, there's like 3 or 4 spots. So if you are keen, you want it, I can't believe that one sold out. And we are now sold out also for the Harrietville that's coming up next.
Cool.
All right. See you,
Thank
legend. Bye.